Wanker, you absolute. All right.
Yeah, we've definitely started recording when he calls me a wanker. We know that's the official entry point of the podcast for Wouter. Okay, so I think welcome to Defen. We've got a new series after the episode of 100 where VJ bowed out and Josh came on board. Welcome back, Josh.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And welcome back, VJ, as a listener to the show for the first time ever, I hear. You better support us on Patreon, VJ. Come on
now. Yeah, and welcome our guest, Kathryn. Hello, Kathryn.
Hi, hello. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Kathryn? Like who you are, where you come from, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. A bit like a first date, that we're on the podcast with. Actually, that sounds a bit creepy because you're a woman. I'm sorry about that. That's we can scratch that.
Yeah, Velter will remove that, and
we can cut that out, and you can overdub it to say job interview.
Oh my god.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. How would you describe yourself if this was a job interview? I think that's even worse to some extent,
Tell me about a time when you were interviewed by two fucking white guys.
Oh, many times that has happened. Yes. So I'm Kathryn. You would not know me from anything. I am a software engineer, and I would have in the past perhaps described myself as a creative technologist. My background is not in computer science, but in the arts. So I am a completely self-taught programmer. And about 2 years ago, I learned Clojure to join Pitch, which is a hopefully well-known Clojure startup in Berlin, Germany, that uses a full Clojure stack to build a presentation software. And yes, I had been programming for the purposes of art and technology and making money, and Pitch completely converted me to being a Clojurista for life, I hope.
Perfect.
Amazing.
That's absolutely perfect.
And I would know you from Pitch. And I'm sure some of our other listeners are also former pitchers or current pitchers. It's possible. Hey, Phil.
Shout out to the Pitch fam.
That's right.
Actually, yeah, they were quite. I think Germany does account for 3% of the listenership. So, that's good.
I know Phil listens to this. Also, like Adam, the CEO, listens to this show.
Wow.
So,
no pressure. Okay.
Hey,
well, unfortunately, as I shared before we started officially recording, I will be leaving Pitch at the end of the year and returning to the United States of America because I did get engaged this summer. So I'm hoping to continue to spread the gospel of Clojure, join another Clojure shop stateside, and of course, wishing all of the best to the future of Pitch and the success of all of my present and former colleagues.
Oh my God. This is a tearjerker of an episode, I can tell.
Yeah, well, congratulations, first of all. I think the good news is that, you've fallen in love, you're getting married. I mean, this is a fantastic journey.
Fallen in love with Clojure, you mean? Or
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. Well, maybe there's two love stories here, There's
let me tell you, my
Are they
fiance.
intertwined?
Oh, okay.
My fiance is actually a Go maintainer.
Oh my God.
Come on.
No.
I will be on enemy territory staring down that bug-eyed little blue freak of a mascot they have every day.
Jeez. Does he at least use Emacs? Please tell me he uses Emacs.
I couldn't tell you. It's not the sort of thing that we discuss.
Well, I mean, you keep the Emacs Vi thing out of your marriage and the tabs and spaces as well. This will be a happy marriage.
You don't want to know. Just don't ask. You don't want to know.
Exactly. Happy wife, happy life. We don't need to discuss such controversial topics within our household.
I mean, error handling is a completely different thing, you know.
Oh, gee, don't get the Go people started with error handling. They are sure everybody's doing it wrong.
Well, so are we, so it's fine, you know.
Yeah, true.
Anyway, Kathryn, yes. So yeah, different loves, and yeah, Go. Very well. Okay. I think your capacity for love is clearly wide and varied. So that's phenomenal. So before you joined Pitch, what kind of things were you doing? Were you JavaScripting? Were you Rubying? Were you doing something completely different with your kind of productive, your creative programming?
Yes, I come from a JavaScript background in terms of work experience. The other German startup that I worked for before, which I will not name on this podcast, lest I am tempted to slander them, was a JavaScript full stack. But I, being a totally voracious learner, have also dabbled in some Python for web scraping purposes and AI training, which I am actually totally not biased against. I think a lot of people are perhaps biased against Python as like an unserious programming language for building applications with. But I actually first started programming in Python when I was working in the marketing department of that same unnamed startup, because we simply didn't have engineering resources to do things like import a bunch of product descriptions to a web page for the content management team. And because we were lacking those resources in engineering, and I had 300 new product descriptions to update, I said, fuck this, I will write a Python script to do it. I simply will just learn it myself. So most of the programming languages I have learned have been out of necessity. And I find that they are all useful for different things, you know?
Totally. And we would never on Deafin, never shit on a programming language. Like, all technologies are wonderful if they're wonderful for the users, except, of course, for Node.js, which is just fucking garbage.
It's not a programming language, though, in fairness.
True,
so,
not a programming language.
Yeah, and in the creative coding communities that I have been in, where people use a lot of strange things like processing, and they're doing cool things with like shaders and even like lower level language stuff to make like glitch art, like really messing with files and codexes and things. I find that there is a very strict kind of policy of no tech bashing. When someone is showing their creative work and they say, I built this with this tool, if you say, why didn't you use this tool? This tool is way better. It's just considered really rude and inappropriate. Although tech bashing can be really fun, especially when you're on a Clojure podcast where we have the best language to advocate for.
It's the roast. It's the comedy roasting, isn't it? You know, that's what we're doing here. You know, it's all in fun. You know,
but I totally agree. Actually, Kathryn, that's something. So I did the Clojure Bridge training. I know that's a big thing that the Berlin community used to do, Clojure Bridge. And so we wanted to put one on in Stockholm, and I actually got a mentor from the Berlin Clojure Bridge fam. And that was one of the things in the training. They were like, absolutely no hating on technology, Windows, whatever, because, that's, you don't want to, you get me. Valter,
you don't want to yuck anybody's yum.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't want to alienate people. When you're trying to show them something interesting rather than necessarily something better.
Exactly.
They'll eventually arrive at the fact that it's better on their own.
Yeah.
Obviously. Or not. Some pearls before swine. But. Anyway, enough of the comedy roasting. Yeah. Kathryn, back to you. You're the guest. We need to have you talking the vast majority of the time, and not you, Josh. Shut up.
I'm not talking, Ray. God damn it.
Right. Kathryn, tell us a bit about your kind of like what was the feeling at first when you like were shown Clojure or whatever? Because it is a very, in some ways, a very strange language if you're used to Python especially or JavaScript. It's kind of different. So was that your initial reaction, or did you kind of fall in love, or what happened? What was the story there?
Yeah, coming from a JavaScript shop to Clojure, I knew I was going to have to just learn it to start the job. And Pitch was very kind. They said they hired me knowing I did not know Clojure, but they believed I had the capability to learn it. And they said you do not have to learn it before you start this job. You can learn it through your work here. But I am a bit of an overachiever and a bit of a teacher's pet. So I bought the book Clojure for the Brave and True by Daniel Higginbotham as my first introduction
Friend
to
of the
Clojure.
show. Yeah.
Big shout out to Daniel, yeah.
Yeah, and I read that cover to cover, and then I built a toy project in Clojure to get some hands-on experience with the REPL and the build tools. I made actually an astrology application. So I used the Swiss ephemeris, which is like a data source that tells you basically at any given time where we could measure the position of the planets in relation to the latitude and longitudes of the Earth. So it's kind of a geographical mapping database. And someone has created Clojure bindings for the Swiss ephemeris. So there was my back end. And for the front end, I used Clojure 2D to basically just draw the chart, the astrological wheel you may be familiar with, or maybe our listeners are familiar with. The chart of the moment. So you have all of the houses and signs, and then the degree that the planet is sitting on within the house and sign, which some believe can help you interpret the current state of the universe and influences on the workings of mankind and other things on the earth. So Clojure 2D for the visualization, this very simple kind of chart that I was drawing. And Line Engine for the build tool, and that was my first ever Clojure app. Was a little desktop astrology chart application. And then of course I hit the ground running at Pitch, and using Clojure script is not so different from JavaScript. I was very familiar already with building React components. I just had to do it with a bunch of parentheses instead of a bunch of brackets. And when we converted our front end from using Reagent to UIX, it was even closer to my known experience and way of writing React hooks and things in components. So the transition actually was very easy once I got familiar with the syntax of the language and building React components exactly as I always had.
Nice.
Yeah, and so why are you pointing at me, Ray? I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I'm new to this whole deafened hosting thing.
Yeah,
but so Kathryn, Pitch is a remote first company, or at least post pandemic we were, and so I joined. When was that actually? I joined in 2022 maybe. And so we actually didn't know each other very well at Pitch other than in Slack, but then we did this really cool offsite, and we had a mini conference with Tech Talks, and you gave a really cool talk on this ASCII tarot thing that you did. And random numbers and all sorts of stuff. So that was kind of the first, big dose of Kathryn I got right in the old main vein, and I was like, holy shit, this person is somebody I need to talk to. So can you tell us about why was I so blown away by your talk?
Well, I'm extremely flattered that you would be. But yeah, I guess having already covered the astrology portion of my interests, I think the intersection of the occult arts and technology is a very rich and interesting one. And I have given some talks in more of a tech creative space about tricking computers into doing magic for us, because we may discuss that most methods of divination, if you want to predict the future, if you want to ask a question to the universe, to a higher power, to whatever you believe in, the way that you usually accomplish getting your answer is through some kind of random process. So going back as far as, the ancient Taoist practice of casting sticks, they have a method of divination to find a corresponding hexagram in the I Ching by taking a bundle of 50 sticks and sorting them in a way that produces kind of a pseudo random number. And then what that number corresponds to in the book, the hexagram shape in the I Ching, will tell you, oh, it is an auspicious time to plant crops, or it is an inauspicious time to go to war. And you could interpret that, for the emperor however you wish to, but it's kind of just a vibe check. So when you flip a coin or shake a magic 8-ball, what you're doing is something that has a completely more or less random output. And we can talk about the various probabilities that are inherent to the methods of generating a random output. But that is so rich to explore with technology. So in trying to do divination, like tarot card reading or astrological interpretation, or using the large language models as some kind of magic 8-ball content producing, answer producing, mysterious method, has been very productive and interesting to me as far as creative technological pursuits go.
Okay, so that is the only valid application of LLMs, producing some bullshit that is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that I have used AI, we should not get onto an AI art tangent here, but the way that I have used AI is very similar to this cut up method that was used by chaos magicians in the 70s and 80s, also used by the poet William Burroughs, also used by David Bowie to generate some of his lyrics, where you take a bunch of words from newspapers or diaries or some text corpus that has significance to you, right? And you randomize them. And then whatever words you pull out of the hat at that moment create a kind of mystical significance, just because it is the random output of those things. And you can use a large language model in very much the same way, because it is a more or less random depending on the temperature, right? If you increase the temperature of what you're requesting from the model, it will be less certain that the output is actually statistically common.
Mm-hmm. And in this case, the LLM is presumably a locally hosted LLM rather than some monstrous thing that burns children for breakfast.
Yeah, I gave a talk about AI for artists where I really advocate for training your own models, which inherently have to be smaller models, and curating your own interesting data sets. So some of my previous work that I did a lot of web scraping for, back to my Python scripting days, was generating a TED Talk where I scraped about 3,000 transcripts and fed them into an LLM. The title of that talk was
Make
Memorials.
it a world a better place.
Yeah, the title of that talk was Memorials to Our Humanity, and it was featured in an online art exhibition in 2019 that actually got a cease and desist letter from the TED organization.
Oh, that is the best.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
That was so cool. They said, you cannot use
unlocked.
This color red, you cannot use our logo,
Wow.
You are not associated with TED, because it was very much satirically billed as being a TEDx event as part of the Wrong Biennale. Yeah. Also, Sorry, just I wanted to talk about two more interesting data sets. One of them was scraping Yahoo Answers before it was shut down. That was kind of like the burning of the Library of Alexandria to me personally.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting text content. there. And I have an upcoming project where I'm planning to use text from the website UUID, where people write about their experiences using various drugs and basically do MK Ultra on an LLM by only feeding it people's trip reports. Kind of playing with the concept of AI hallucination.
Oh, this is so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting data sets out there, and you can make your own, and that's part of the fun of it, right? And that's part of the magic. Like a lot of the magical texts and let's say grimoires, some of the known methods of doing magic involve creating your own tools. So maybe that's how I can pivot to talking about my tarot deck, which Josh has a copy of.
Totally. And just like, please, Kathryn, just shower us with links so we can put stuff in the show notes, because now I want to just binge your content. This is too exciting.
Yeah,
In fact, can we stop recording and I'll just go do that?
I just updated my personal website to have functioning links to everything. So it is kathrynisabelle.com. It should be available in the show notes. I will send you a link.
Nice.
I do spell Kathryn with a K and an RYN. Isabelle is spelled with the full ELLE at the end. And yes, so I lost my train of thought.
You're going to pivot to the tarot cards. Yeah.
Right. So I was involved in some glitch artist communities online. This was actually before Discord, back when we were on social Slack channels. Before we got hip to what the kids were doing on Discord, I was in a social Slack with some glitch artists, and we were discussing magic, glitch. A lot of those people were making their own tools for generating art. And I was gifted my first tarot deck, and I was inspired to create a deck using ASCII art, because that has been an absolute passion of mine as a nerd and someone who loves to add a bit of whimsy to my projects.
Nice.
You can never go wrong adding some ASCII sparkles or a console log that draws something very interesting. You know, if you start any project, just setting up the infrastructure, the first thing you should do is make sure that it can print a cute little picture of something.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I used Nano as my text editor, and let's not have any discussion about whether that was the best tool for the job, but I illustrated the full deck, all of the cards, as an adaptation of the Rider Smith Waite tarot deck. That is the one most people would be familiar with the illustrations of. The illustrations by Pamela Coleman Smith. You can look it up on Wikipedia. I think it would be the entry for tarot deck or Rider Waite deck. And they were all illustrated just in 20 lines of text. And they were for a command line interface that just uses JavaScript math.random as its random number generator. And I found that was more or less sufficient for mystical synchronicity. But yeah, it was originally illustrated to be used on the command line. So they're very small ASCII illustrations that are fit into only 20 lines of text. And I actually later adapted it to an IRL version where I printed the text in, of course, a lime green kind of homebrew shell theme. What is the theme? What is the terminal theme called? That's green on black.
It's like the
homebrew, not homebrew.
Homebrew.
I said homebrew.
Yeah.
It's the homebrew theme in green and black on paper. So the IRL deck you can actually, use as a deck of cards. And just last year, at the end of last year or early this year, I created a Discord bot adaptation, because now I am hip and cool and I'm on Discord with all my friends. And you can use a regular Discord bot to use the draw command, and it will draw a card, and all the images are just images from the same deck. But that one uses the actual random.org API, which is slightly more legitimately random than JavaScript's math.random function, because random.org uses atmospheric noise for generating random numbers, and they actually statistically test their outputs for true or as close to true randomness as possible. So I find that the Discord bot is actually creepily more accurate than using the command line interface. But both of those are free, and they are linked on my website if you're interested in trying them out and you haven't been, as Josh was, gifted the IRL edition of the deck.
Yeah. It's beautiful, though. People can order a copy, right, from your website, I think? Or they used to be able to, or maybe not?
Yeah, they could. There are very few existing in the world at this point.
Okay.
So I am accepting orders and inquiries just via email now. And once I have enough interest to print a second edition, they will be available for easy purchase with a Stripe link on my website again. But currently the Stripe store is disabled.
Okay.
Nice. The funny thing about we're talking about like randomness for the occultish thing, but of course, random to me it's peculiar how the magic aspect of randomness is also the basis of all internet security. We're talking about Stripe shopping and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Everything to do with cryptography. Everything, and it amuses me. I think I can't remember what the author was, and Josh will probably remind me, or you will, Kathryn, who said that as technology increases in sort of sophistication and complexity, it essentially becomes magic.
So that's Arthur C. Clarke, right?
Arthur C. Clarke,
actually, the quote is, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Obviously.
Okie dokie. Yeah. Right. Thank you for that inline live correction. Fact check. Yes.
And for cryptography, I mean, let's talk about lava lamps, right? The Cloudflare encryption seed generated by a wall of beautiful lava lamps that's being watched by a webcam. I mean, that's magic, is it not?
Absolutely. But it's sort of funny how we're in a world of like logic and order, and yet the heart of it, the reality of it, the fundamentals of it is randomness, and so it'd be interesting to get into that a bit more deeply, I think, because I know this is something that you're interested in, Kathryn. So let's talk a little bit more about that, about how randomness is sort of like essentially everywhere, and I'm a believer in RNGesus, so I want to spread the gospel of RNGesus. So let's get into it.
Yeah, praise RNGesus, our Lord and pseudo random savior. I think as far as randomness as like a philosophy and as like the basis of our universe goes, we need to talk about, of course, quantum theory. Sure. Much beloved by physics nerds and woo-woo magic users and occultists alike. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of the quantum theory, right, of drawing tarot cards. I know a lot of people, if they give you a tarot reading, they will spread out the deck of cards and then they'll wave their hands over it to like feel the vibes. You don't need to do all of that. All you have to do is know that before you turn over a card in the deck, it is in a superposition where it is every card in the deck. And as soon as you flip it over and observe it, you have entered into an agreement with the universe that this is the state of the universe at that moment, that this card is visible out of every other card. You have created reality. You have co-created reality through a random process of flipping a single card in a deck of cards. Yeah. So that's kind of the quantum entanglement part of it. But you're totally right, Ray, that we spend so much of our time as programmers trying to do things deterministically. And when we have to do something that gets random, I don't know if maybe some of our listeners or you guys have ever seen the error insufficient entropy.
Yeah.
we try to use the sources, every input at our disposal, the webcam, the temperature of the computer, mouse clicks, mouse movements, everything, to try and figure out, to get a unique output and feed all of this kind of behavior and ambient information into something that can produce something that is unpredictable.
Yeah.
And trying to predict unpredictability, trying to force a deterministic machine to give you a non-deterministic output, you do have to feed something into it from the real world. It's really making the computer interact with a larger force of the universe, whether it's atmospheric noise, whether it's the barometric movements of lava lamps, whether it's your completely random mouse movements and temperature fluctuations in your machine. Entropy is necessary to do any magical process. And whether it's totally random or just pseudo random, when you actually engage with the action and turn the entropy into a deterministic result, that's how you co-create reality with the random process.
Damn. Yeah, I remember actually in the old days when you generated like a long GPG key, I think it used dev urandom on Linux, and it would literally tell you to like move your mouse, generate some disk activities. So I was always doing like, du-h on my root file system and, moving the mouse like a wild man and all of this. That was fun.
Yeah, and did you feel like you were doing a ritual, casting a spell, kind of
I mean,
bending the computer to your will through some kind of totally bizarre sequence of actions?
So I never thought of it like that, but I think like about 15 years ago, I read this book called Hip Tastes, and it was a little 100-page book by a sommelier trying to demystify the whole like wine culture. And she had a whole chapter on ritual. She was like, listen, the shape of the glass, the only difference it makes is the surface area of the wine. Everything else is bullshit. However, like double blind tests have shown that using different glasses changes the user's perception of the wine. So like she got into this idea of ritual as something that brings richness to our lives, and I thought that was like super interesting. And just after reading that book, I started paying attention to other things I did in my life and like what had that kind of ritualistic thing and how I felt about it. So anyway, sorry, tangent, but that's what we do here.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of things that programmers do could be seen as very superstitious, whether you understand the process behind them or not. I mean, there are also real magical or religious beliefs that people imbue their computing with. I'm thinking, for example, things like having members of the clergy come to bless your data center.
Really?
Yes, which is something you can find hilarious pictures of on Wikipedia. Or this belief that if you leave a certain type of crisp packet, I think it's a Southeast Asian brand of potato chips. If you put that on top of your web server, it will help it keep functioning. Maybe that has something to do with ghosts not interfering with your computer. But there's all sorts of interactions between kind of like magical rituals and technology that are as simple as maybe the one that most of our audience would believe and be familiar with, not deploying on a Friday, right?
Yeah.
That's an unlucky day to do a deploy. You just simply wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concept of like magic is everywhere. I think these days, and I mean, to be honest, I think once you're programming, you realize that you can try and tell the computer what to do, but it's pretty rare that it actually does it first time. And so you're always incanting some kind of god,
and
or some kind of superpower.
And what do we call computer processes that we spawn to deliver our will unto other programs? They're literally demons.
They're demons, absolutely.
And we have zombies, right? Yeah. If the parent dies and the child lives on, it's a zombie process. Yep.
Yeah, I will say that when I have discussed these concepts with other engineers, I do have the utmost respect for people who don't want to engage on the like occultic and magical level with these technologies. I did have a conversation with a colleague recently who I was discussing all of these super exciting magical ideas with, who said that due to his personal religion, he doesn't fuck with demons. And I said, you know what? I respect that. If you don't fuck with demons, maybe you know a little bit more about them than I do, because you have a healthy fear and respect, and I'm over here dabbling in the dark arts and trying to bend entropy to my will. Who knows what's going to happen because of that? So it's not even the skeptical viewpoint, it's the viewpoint of this is dangerous.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. What? So running a Unix system is dangerous. Is that basically what we're saying?
Yeah. If you try and get too deep on the level of demons and stuff, absolutely.
Oh man, there's so many thoughts popping off in my head now, but like maybe we should steer somewhere back into Clojure territory somewhat. Unless we want to explore the idea of, randomness a little more, because you did threaten that you could talk about this for 5 to 6 hours, which is about the length of a normal Deafin episode anyway, Ray, isn't it?
Yeah, without any editing, yeah, for sure. Usually edit down to 2 or 3 hours, but yeah.
Well,
the raw cuts.
Let's talk a little bit about fractals, and that will bring us back towards Clojure, right? Because there is a lot of overlap in kind of the, again, scientifically minded and physics and natural sciences community, right? About the structure of our known universe as fractal, as holographic, as recursive, right? And I think that thinking recursively using a language like a Lisp also can help you kind of tap into this kind of divine fractal nature of the universe. I remember there was a talk at the Heart of Clojure conference called Standing on the Shoulders of Giants.
I love that.
Yeah, it discussed the history of the study of recursion, and particularly this Hungarian professor named Rosa Peters, I believe, who was a major contributor to the theory of proving recursion mathematically, like the mathematical proofs that they were inventing in like the 20s and the 30s. And the paradox that talk opened with, whether the set of all sets that do not contain themselves can contain itself. I mean, this is basically the same question as, could God create a rock so big he couldn't lift it, right?
Yeah.
And one of the main takeaways from thinking about the study of recursive algorithms is that we know that we can mathematically prove that some things are unprovable, and that's okay. That is perfectly fine for me personally as a justification for the existence of magic and the unknown. But going back to fractals and recursive thinking, it really gets you deep into those rabbit holes of existence, non-existence, infinity. Oh no.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't mention, but it is the day before Halloween that we're recording this. So it's good that we're getting into really scary shit like, do we exist?
Is that the question, though? Or is it Emacs or some other shit, Josh? It's like...
Well, I use Emacs, therefore I exist. I don't know how to say that in Latin. Maybe I should look that up. VJ will know.
Yeah. But so I think the whole notion of recursion is something which, bizarrely, I think you can kind of learn it as a 5 or 6 year old, and yet it is quite scary. I mean, I remember like when I was programming in other lesser languages, that if you saw a pull request or a kind of code change with recursion in it, everyone would like, oh, whoa. Stop. we can do this without recursion. We can do this without recursion. Yeah, but it takes you 50 lines, where this is 3 lines and it's beautiful, but it could all go wrong. Yeah, but it won't,
We've never seen a for loop go wrong, right? There are no off by one errors ever.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny how there is a suspicion, there is a sort of a fear of recursion in the programming world. I want to say that. I mean, it's not about necessarily the occult, but there is a fear of its like not just the sort of the stack trace, but this fear of things being out of control or running away.
Yeah, it's like that scene in Fantasia, right? Where
Right.
Mickey Mouse is the little wizard enchanting the brooms, and then it just keeps going.
Yeah, or things just keep on spawning and spawning and spawning, and so there's this fear that even a very well sort of crafted bit of recursion has a problem. And I occasionally, even in Clojure, I write a thing called loop recur or on a function, and a lot of Clojurians will say, "Oh, don't do that. You should be using reduce, map, filter, all these sort of things." But a loop and a recur, they have their place,
Yeah, for sure.
And I want to be in that place where they can exist, where everyone's free to loop and recur.
Yeah, I also remember this fear of recursion when using other languages, but I will say that using Clojure has fundamentally altered my brain, because as I now study again data structures and algorithms to brush up on my LEET code for an impending job search in the Bay Area, I find myself tending towards and preferring the recursive version of a search algorithm because it just makes sense after you've been dealing with sequences and nothing but sequences.
Yeah, I also think somehow, I mean, and again, maybe this is, I don't know if we're going to jump off on this one, but when you recur, there is a sort of feeling, there's a sort of tendency towards immutability. Whereas if you're kind of looping over things, then you tend towards mutability. You tend towards like in-place changes, and when you recur, you tend towards immutability. I don't know if that's a vibe or if it's what are your feelings about that?
I don't have personal feelings about it. I will say it does inspire me to think about the different kind of course, with Clojure being preferring immutable data structures, it makes sense why we would also prefer recursive versions of algorithms. But Josh, do you have any thoughts?
No, the only reason I mention it is because job interviews. You mentioned the job interviews, and a lot of people when they ask you.
Speaking of randomness,
when they ask you to I don't know to do some sort of B tree or whatever, then the natural way of doing it is just recursive or recursing down through the tree. Do a walk, essentially a kind of walk. But if you're in a sort of like a traditional non-recursive kind of environment, then you will do updates as you go along. You will keep everything like you will optimize immediately. You will optimize for like, okay, just keep this space very tightly defined. And that's a bit of a difference. I feel like, at a certain scale that might be true. It might be faster to do it. But again, a lot of it's to do with the way that computers are structured, or the way that we kind of a lot of these algorithms and data structures and the way that systems are made come from the 1960s, 1970s, not necessarily from the mathematics of the 20s and 30s, which are more fundamental. They tend to be constrained by the price of memory, the price of computer hardware, essentially. And we're seeing in this sort of the last 10 years that whether that we can revisit some of those assumptions. And I think we're going to find the same thing with algorithms and data structures as well, that over the next 10, 20 years, as we become more liberal, let's say, with our ability to acquire hardware, then maybe some of these restraints will be gone. I'm on a rant now. I'll stop. Okay. Kathryn, what do you think?
It just reminds me of also some research that I did into neural network and the algorithms that we're using for creating, Bayesian models and things like that, right? We're always looping through the nodes. And yeah, I think with the amount of computational power, time, and energy that AI algorithms take, right? Those would be unthinkable years ago, and we're only scaling up the infrastructure to support them and make bigger and bigger models. And I don't know if that's necessarily a great thing for the world in general.
No, that's the worst thing
that
ever.
That power is going unchecked, but it is very computationally interesting to see what we can do when we have the endless power to enumerate all possible universes and all possible paths and all possible nodes. I mean, we get into Mr. Strange territory, right? Where all known universes could be known to us. And that kind of ties it back into the magical weirdness I'm trying to bring to the pod. But it could be true. Who knows? I think that is an AI future that we could be somewhat optimistic about.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely didn't want to motivate large-scale data centers by that comment. So let's just be clear about that,
Shout out to, a friend of the show, another podcast, the Data Vampires series, which we should drop on just to talk more about data centers and what LLMs are doing to us all. But yeah, I agree, Kathryn. They're like, this stuff is super fun to think about. Like, for me, I just love thinking about this shit. And you're excited, so say something.
I would also just like to put on the record, I am not super excited for all of the water and matter in my body to be burned up and turned into paper clips personally. But if I am to become a paperclip, I hope that I will be a good one and that my matter will be enjoyed by the rest of the universe as it is slowly turned into paperclips as well.
We must appease the basilisk, right?
I see you're making a podcast. Can I help with that? That was just a paperclip. That was a paperclip joke there. Okay.
Yeah, we got it. Thanks. All right. So we have been going for a while, not as long as usual, because unfortunately, like, I have to go and do a thing, spoiler of the show. It was better when VJ was
the worst host ever.
Who the fuck is this guy?
Oh, God.
Anyway, sorry. So what I was going to say is that we ran into each other, all three of us, at Heart of Clojure, which you already alluded to, Kathryn, about a month ago as of recording?
Mm-hmm.
And I just really wanted to get your thoughts about the conference because I know I had a great time. Ray, whatever, almost got me killed, but that's another story. But what about you, Kathryn?
I loved it. I had so much fun. I have nothing but rave reviews and love in my heart for the Clojure community. It was so inspiring. It was so refreshing. Everyone was so kind and smart and interesting. I feel like I made 100 new friends in the span of 2 days. And yeah, I just loved it. It was a great work by the Heart of Clojure organizers.
Yeah. And you mentioned Daniel's talk on the shoulders of, or standing on the shoulders of giants. What other talks kind of stuck in your memory? Any other, let's reminisce here for a few minutes before we close it out.
Yeah, the pop quiz. Which talks was I actually paying attention to? No, Shoulders of Giants really made an impression on me. I have never found, I know this makes me kind of a lame, no, I won't disparage myself. People who are into compilers are weird, and I shouldn't aspire to be one of those people. Yeah. But as someone who has never appreciated the beauty of working with compilers, I really enjoyed the talk. Let me just do that whole sentence again.
Sure.
As someone who has never personally been interested in compilers, the talk by the maintainer and I think creator of Jank about adding functions to Jank programming down to the compiler level actually made me interested in how that works at that level for the first time. And I will say that the closing, of course, the opening keynote was amazing, but you already had Lou on and everyone gushed about how amazing that was from the very first hour of the conference. So I don't need to mention that again. That was amazing. Lou's Scrappy Fiddles talk about what it means to be open. And the closing talk actually by Eric Normand about the wonders of abstraction. That was really enjoyable to me as someone who likes to go all the way back to the Stone Age to figure out why we're doing what we do with computers today. I really enjoyed that talk went from the history of stone tools all the way to building the logic gates of computer systems. That was super fascinating, and I love that he threw it all the way back to the Stone Age with that.
Yeah, spoiler alert, we're going to have Eric on soon, so that's
Oh no, spoiler for the wonders of abstraction, but I believe you can already watch that talk online on YouTube, right?
Of course,
Heart of Clojure talks are up.
Yeah, but don't watch it before the Deafin episode. Come on. Actually, his episode will be out next, Kathryn. So you are going to be a hard act for him to follow, but he's going to have to step up.
I'm just teeing you up for a segue right into the next episode.
That's the magic of podcasting.
Oh, Ray, come on.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess on that, we had better just go with that terrible pun. I mean, it's only going to go downhill from here. So, Kathryn, it was great to talk to you today. I'm really bummed that we didn't work together for long enough at Pitch for us to have more interesting conversations about this stuff. But thanks at least for coming on the podcast and telling us fun stuff.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed ranting about art and randomness and divination and occultism and computers. And if there's only one thing that I would want to plug, it is the concept of believing in magic, even though you are a person who does things with computers. you can have both. You can be a programmer, believe in deterministic systems, and also believe in the great unknown and the unknowable forces of the universe, and harness their powers to your dark intention.
It's a dark intentions bit that's slightly worrying to me there, but dear listeners,
it is almost Halloween, so I thought I would get a little spooky with it.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Kathryn, and best of luck with your return to the US and all the activities and the job hunts and the marriage and all this kind of stuff. And no doubt we'll hear from you again because you're clearly an absolutely fabulous person doing great stuff and very creative. And I've really enjoyed this conversation as well. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. I hope to continue to also be a part of this great Clojure community. You guys are doing great work as well.
Thanks.
All right. On that note, we're out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Deafin. And the awesome vegetarian music or the track is Melon Hamburger by Pizzeri. And the show's audio is mixed by Wouter Dullert. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name. Maybe you should insert your own name here, Dullert.
Motet.
If you'd like to support us, please do check out our Patreon page. And you can show your appreciation to all the hard work or the lack of hard work that we're doing. And you can also catch up with either Ray, with me for some unexplainable reason. You want to interact with us, then do check us out on Slack, Clojurian Slack or Clojureverse, or on Zulip, or just at us at Deafin Podcast on Twitter. Enjoy your day and see you in the next episode.
Yeah, some ominous church bells, perhaps some bats squeaking, some clanking chains of a dungeon, a bubbling cauldron. All of these things are available on Spooky Halloween Sound Effects Volumes 1 through 217, so I think you should be able to insert spooky sound here.